Enzymes, enzymes, enzymes. All right, let's start with metabolism. You always hear about people's metabolism. And so here, what metabolism we're talking about is a metabolism is really the sum of all the chemical reactions that are occurring in an organism. So everything that's going on is, when we look at the two major processes, the catabolism, kata means to break apart. So catabolism is the breakdown of energy. And anabolism is the building of, to make them more complex. So with catabolism, we have this, it releases the energy, the chemical energy. So we have food, and then we go through this whole process of breaking the food down, the glucose, into carbon dioxide and water, releasing the chemical energy. That's catabolism. We call this an exergonic reaction because it's releasing heat into the environment. Ex meaning outside, so exergonic, it's releasing heat because those bonds are broken. We're releasing that energy. Think of the easy way to remember this is catabolism. Think of catastrophe. In a catastrophe, things are just broken up everywhere. They're just destroyed. And so you think along those lines, and that's going to help you remember catabolism. Anabolism is the assembling of these molecules. So we're doing just the opposite. We're building them. So we're going from small molecules, building up into these large molecules. It's going to require energy. I mean, think about it. You're making bonds. You're going from smaller to bigger, the monos to the polys. And so we are, we're building. In your notes, what I'd like for you to do is in catabolism, put big to small, and then anabolism, right, small to big. All right, when we look at the energy, we are looking at kinetic versus potential. And kinetic energy is, we denote that with KE, capital KE, and this is the energy of movement. And specifically within biology, we'll talk about the movement of electrons or protons and that movement from there. But potential is stored energy. It's stored in the chemical bonds. It's just waiting there to be used. Potential versus kinetic energy. When we look here, we're looking at the potential is stored in the bonds here. And then this is what ATP, adenosine triphosphate, this is what ATP actually looks like. You have your adenine, your 5-carbon sugar with the ribose and the ribose sugar. And then you have your triphosphate, your 3 phosphate groups. Well, we add a water, and what do we know about adding a water now? That when we add a water, we have hydrolysis. So you have hydrolysis that's going to break that bond, and you can see that inorganic phosphates removed. So we go from triphosphate to ADP, diphosphate. How it happens in the environment is we look at this, we have photosynthesis that happens in the chloroplast of the plants, and then we make from that, we use the light energy, we make organic molecules, oxygen's given off, and then that goes into the mitochondria then produces the ATP. That ATP is broken down into ADP because we're breaking those bonds, we're using the energy, and then we have our raw materials to start photosynthesis again. So I'd like for you to draw this picture in your notes and label it. All right, so thermodynamics, therm means heat. So thermodynamics, this is the study of heat energy and its properties, which is the dynamics. So the dynamics of the heat property. The red is the energy flow, and the blue is the elements, the chemical element flow. So the chemicals are going to flow this way, but then you can see the solar energy coming off here, and that's going to cycle. You can see the energy does not cycle around, but you can see that the chemicals do cycle around. That's going to be an important point coming up. So the first law of thermodynamics, whoops, went too far. The first law of thermodynamics is the principle of the conservation of energy. This is, you need to just know this, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It's only transformed or transferred. So it's transferred from one place to another. And then, let me go back here. And then the second law of thermodynamics is every energy transfer increases the entropy in the universe. Entropy is a measure of disorder. How much disorder? So every time we transfer energy, there's more disorder that occurs. With this entropy, you're unable to do, when there's a high state of entropy, you're unable to do work because it's in a low state of order. There's a lot of disorder going on. Sunlight, which is very high quality energy, here you can see the sunlight, goes in, and then eventually you have heat that goes out, and it can't do any work because it's very low quality. It's gone through all of these different levels. Very high quality energy here, very organized, very disorganized coming out of here. Lots of entropy. Gibbs free energy, this is free energy that's available to do work. And you can see in your notes, it says mainly making ATP or GTP in a cell. And so this free energy is available. Not all energy is available. And this is important. Highlight this. Some is lost as waste. So, sorry, let me go back. I keep going back here. So not all this energy from the sun is available. Where is it going? Some of it is lost as waste. You can see some's just given off. Like when we defecate, the same goes for cells too. So not all the food that we use is used for energy. Some of it, we just go to the bathroom and get rid of. We don't use it all. So, but here's an important point. Circle this, star it, highlight it, everything. Most energy is lost as heat, as a byproduct of those bonds being broken. So as the bonds are broken, heat energy is released. Most of this energy is lost as heat. So as we look at an energy pyramid coming up, you're going to see the majority of all the energy from the sun we do not ever even utilize. Be great if we figured out how to use it. Types of work performed by cells, by living cells, and most of these, I want you to circle this, most are achieved by using proteins and enzymes. So proteins and enzymes, most of the work. Mechanical work, which is work outside the cell. Then we have transport across the membrane, that's our active and passive transport. And then the metabolic processes, catabolism and animalism, breaking down or the making. So most of that work is performed that way. All right, now if we're talking about the making and using of ATP, we keep saying ATP is energy, but how? I mean, how does it work? So it is a constant recycling process. It needs this free energy. Remember we talked about Gibbs free energy. It needs the free energy released from the food to keep going. So it can't just sit there. It has to be used. So here we have energy from catabolism coming in here from the breakdown. We have that, and that's used to make ATP, adenosine triphosphate, 3 bonds there with the phosphate groups. That bond is broken. You can see now we end up with adenosine diphosphate and the inorganic, and separately the inorganic phosphate, because that bond is broken. And in that process, energy has been released because we broke that bond and released the potential energy that's sitting there and made it kinetic energy. So the free energy from our food molecules is used to produce the ATP. The ATP is used to power the cellular processes by providing this phosphate. This is known as phosphorylation. Remember, phosphorylation, sticking that phosphate group on there. So ATP is made of this 5-carbon sugar, so this ribose sugar right here, the nitrogen base, adenine. So we know our nitrogenous base is adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. So ATP, adenosine triphosphate, it's adenine, and then the ribose sugar, and then the 3 phosphate groups. 3 negative phosphate groups linked together make it highly unstable. It's like a compressed spring. See all these negative charges here? There's not a hydrogen hanging off of there. And so it's very unstable. And that means it has the capacity to do work because it wants to be stable, so it can do work. So ATP, converting to ADP, gives off energy. So ADP being converted to ATP, we're sticking that phosphate group on, requires energy. Again, we're making the bond or we're breaking the bond. If we're breaking the bond, energy is released. If we're making the bond, if I'm making dinner, it's going to require energy. Where if I'm just sitting at the table and someone brings me the food, it doesn't require any energy. Then we have, whoops, that's it. We have phosphorylation. And again, that terminology, the attaching of an unstable phosphorus ion to another molecule to make it unstable and thereby able to perform work. So we're attaching a phosphorus on. We're going to attach the phosphorus on to here and allow it to be able to do work. If we take it off, it quits working. It deactivates. It's like turning off a switch. And that's all we have for today.